What secret was the chained woman hiding that would transform a bitter ex-Confederate soldier into the most wanted man in Texas and change the fate of the entire Reconstruction era? Tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. My name is Caleb Harrison, and I've been running from my past for 2 years now. Ever since the war ended in '65, I've been drifting across Texas like a ghost, trying to forget the things I did, wearing Confederate gray. Some men came home to parades and families. I came home to nightmares and an empty house where my wife and daughter used to live. It was October 1867, and I was riding through the scrubland between San Antonio and Austin, looking for work and trying to stay ahead of the memories that followed me like vultures. My horse, a sturdy bay mare named Bonnie, was getting tired, and the sun was beating down mercilessly. This part of Texas was unforgiving, all thorns and heat and dust that got into your soul and never came out. I'd been riding for 3 days straight, living on jerky and creek water when I heard it. At first, I thought it was just the wind playing tricks on my ears, but as I crested a small hill, I heard it again, a sound that made my blood run cold. It was singing, a woman's voice, low and mournful, carrying across the desert like a prayer. But there was something else mixed in with the melody, the sound of metal against metal, rhythmic and desperate. I dismounted and crept forward, using the mesquite bushes for cover. What I saw in the valley below made my stomach turn. A woman was chained to a dead tree, her wrists bound with heavy iron shackles that had rubbed her skin raw. She was Negro, maybe 25 years old, with coffee-colored skin and hair that had been braided but was now coming loose. Her dress was torn and dirty, and I could see dried blood on her arms and face. But it was her eyes that stopped me cold. Even from a distance, I could see they weren't the eyes of a broken woman. They were alert, intelligent, and filled with a kind of cold fury that reminded me of a cornered wildcat. She was still singing, some spiritual I didn't recognize, but she was using the rhythm to work at her chains. Every time she hit a certain note, she'd twist her wrists, trying to find a weakness in the metal. I scanned the area, looking for whoever had done this to her. There were horse tracks leading away to the south, maybe 6 or 7 riders. They were long gone, but that didn't mean they weren't coming back. Now, I need to be honest with you about something. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have given a damn about one Negro woman chained to a tree. I'd been raised in Mississippi, fought for the Confederacy, and held all the prejudices that came with that life. But the war had changed me in ways I was still trying to understand. I'd seen too much death, too much suffering. I'd watched good men die for causes that seemed less noble with each passing day, and I'd come to realize that suffering was suffering, regardless of the color of the person experiencing it. I made my decision. I led Bonnie down into the valley, making enough noise to announce my presence. The woman stopped singing and watched me approach, her body tense and ready to fight or run, despite the chains. "Easy there," I said, raising my hands to show I meant no harm. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't respond, just studied me with those intelligent eyes. I could see her taking in every detail, my clothes, my weapons, the way I carried myself. She was evaluating me, trying to determine if I was friend or foe. "My name's Caleb Harrison," I continued. "I heard you singing and came to investigate. Who did this to you?" Still no response, but I noticed her eyes flick to the tracks leading south, then back to me. "I'm going to get you out of those chains," I said, pulling out my lockpicks, "but I need you to trust me." "Why?" she asked, and her voice was nothing like what I'd expected. It was educated, cultured, with barely a trace of the accent I associated with slaves. "Why would you help me?" "Because it's the right thing to do." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The right thing to do? You're a white man in Texas, and I'm a Negro woman in chains. Since when do white men do the right thing?" "Since I decided I was tired of doing the wrong thing." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded slightly. "You can try, but those chains are military grade. They won't be easy to break." "Military grade?" I examined the shackles more closely. She was right. These weren't the kind of chains you'd use on a farm or ranch. These were the heavy-duty restraints the army used for prisoners of war. "Who are you?" I asked as I worked on the locks. "Does it matter?" "It might. If someone's coming back for you, I need to know what I'm up against." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "My name is Zara Freeman. And the men who did this to me, they won't be coming back." "How can you be sure?" "Because they think I'm dead." I looked up from the lock, meeting her eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been here for 3 days, and they expected the desert to kill me. They wanted it to look like an accident, like I'd wandered off and gotten lost." "Why would they want you dead?" "Because I know things that could destroy some very powerful people." The first lock clicked open, and I moved to the second one. "What kind of things?" "The kind that get people killed." I freed her other wrist, and she rubbed the raw skin, wincing. "Thank you," she said simply. "Can you ride?" "I can do whatever I need to do." I helped her to her feet, and she swayed slightly but remained upright. She was stronger than she looked, with the kind of resilience that came from surviving things that would break most people. "Where can I take you?" I asked. "Do you have family? Friends?" "I had friends. They're dead now." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'll mourn them properly when I've finished what they died for." I didn't like the sound of that. "What exactly are you planning to finish?" She looked at me with those sharp eyes, and I had the feeling she was making another calculation about me. "Tell me something, Caleb Harrison. What did you do in the war?" "I was a soldier." "Which side?" I hesitated. "Confederate." "I thought so. I can tell by the way you carry yourself. You were cavalry, weren't you?" "How did you know?" "Because I've been watching soldiers for years, learning their habits, their weaknesses, their tells." She walked over to where I'd dropped my canteen and took a long drink. "What unit?" "3rd Texas Cavalry." "Ah, you fought at Gettysburg." "I did." "And Antietam." "Yes." "Then you've seen hell." "More than once." She nodded, as if this confirmed something she'd suspected. "Good. Then you'll understand what I'm about to tell you." "Which is?" "That the war never really ended. It just changed shape." I didn't know what she meant by that, but something in her tone made me uneasy. "Zara, who were those men, the ones who chained you up?" "Slave traders." "Slave traders? But slavery's been abolished." The war ended, but the demand for free labor didn't. There's a network of men who kidnap freed slaves and sell them to plantations in Mexico and South America. It's illegal, but it's profitable. And you know about this because I've been fighting it for 2 years, ever since they killed my husband." The way she said it made me realize there was a lot more to this story. "What did your husband do?" "He was a Union spy during the war. Afterward, he started investigating the slave trade. He got too close to the truth, and they murdered him." "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you, but I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm looking for justice." I helped her up onto Bonnie, and she settled into the saddle with the ease of someone who'd spent time on horseback. "Where to?" "San Antonio. There's a man there who might be able to help us." "Us?" "You don't think you can just walk away from this, do you? The moment you freed me, you became part of it." "Part of what?" "The war that's still being fought. The war between those who believe in freedom and those who believe in profit." I mounted behind her, trying to process what she'd told me. "What makes you think I want to be part of any war?" "Because you freed me. Because you did the right thing when you could have just ridden away. Because you're tired of running from your past." She was right about that last part. I'd been running for 2 years, and I was tired of it, but I wasn't sure I was ready to start fighting again. "This network you mentioned," I said as we rode toward San Antonio. "How big is it?" "Big enough to reach into the highest levels of government. Big enough to have judges, sheriffs, and army officers in their pocket. And you think one woman can bring them down?" "Not one woman. But maybe one woman and one man who's tired of doing the wrong thing." We rode in silence for a while, both lost in our own thoughts. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky red and gold. It was beautiful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it looked like blood. "Zara," I said eventually. What exactly did you do during the war? I was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. I helped slaves escape to the north. That's dangerous work. It was the right work. And after the war, when I thought my job was done, I discovered that evil has a way of adapting, of finding new forms. So you kept fighting. I kept fighting. And I'll keep fighting until every last one of these bastards is dead or in prison. And if you get yourself killed in the process, then I'll die knowing I did everything I could to stop them. I admired her determination, but I was worried about her chances. Taking on a network of criminals with government connections was suicide, especially for a Negro woman in 1867 Texas. What about the law? Can't you go to the authorities? The authorities are part of the problem. The man who runs this network is Colonel Thaddeus Blackwood, formerly of the Confederate Army. He's got connections everywhere. Blackwood? The name was familiar, but I couldn't place it. You know him? I've heard the name. He was involved in some kind of scandal during the war. He was running slaves to Confederate officers who wanted personal servants. When the war ended, he just expanded the operation. And you have proof of this. I have documents, names, dates, financial records, everything needed to destroy him. Where are these documents? Hidden, in a place only I know. And Blackwood knows you have them? He knows I'm a threat. That's why he had me chained up in the desert. But he doesn't know you're still alive. Not yet, but he will soon enough. As we approached the outskirts of San Antonio, I realized that my life had just taken a turn I never could have expected. A few hours ago, I'd been a drifter with no purpose beyond staying alive. Now I was part of something bigger, something that could determine the fate of thousands of people. Zara, I said, what you're planning to do, it's going to be dangerous. I know. You could die. I know. And you're willing to risk that? I'm willing to risk everything. The question is, are you? I thought about it as we rode into the city. Was I willing to risk everything for a cause I'd only just learned about? Was I ready to stop running and start fighting again? I don't know, I said honestly. But I guess I'm about to find out. Zara smiled, and for the first time since I'd found her, she looked genuinely hopeful. Good, she said, because tomorrow we're going to war. Chapter 2. San Antonio at night was a maze of flickering lanterns and shadowy alleys, filled with the kind of people who preferred to do their business away from prying eyes. We rode through the streets slowly, Zara giving me directions to a part of town I'd never seen before. Turn here, she said, pointing to a narrow alley between two adobe buildings. We're going to see Sam Washington. Who's Sam Washington? A blacksmith, and one of the few people in this city I can trust. The alley opened into a small courtyard where several modest buildings formed a square. Light spilled from the windows of what looked like a workshop, and I could hear the ring of hammer on anvil even at this late hour. Sam works at night, Zara explained. Fewer people around to ask questions. We dismounted and I tied Bonnie to a post outside the workshop. The door was heavy wood reinforced with iron, and when Zara knocked, she used a specific pattern. 3 quick taps, 2 slow ones, then 3 quick again. The hammering stopped, and I heard footsteps approaching. "Who is it?" came a deep voice from inside. "It's me, Sam. I need help." The door opened, revealing a tall, powerfully built Negro man in his 40s. He had the kind of arms that came from years of working iron, and his face was weathered but kind. When he saw Zara, his eyes widened with shock. "Zara! Thank God you're alive! We thought—" He stopped, noticing me for the first time. "Who's this?" "This is Caleb Harrison. He saved my life." Sam looked me up and down, taking in my Confederate-style boots and the way I wore my gun. "You trust him? He freed me from Blackwood's chains. I'm alive because of him." Sam stepped back, motioning us inside. "Come in, quickly. We have much to discuss." The workshop was impressive. Anvils and forges, tools hanging from every available surface, and the smell of hot metal and coal smoke. But it was more than just a blacksmith shop. I could see rifles and ammunition stored in wooden crates and maps spread across a table in the corner. "You're not just a blacksmith," I said. "I'm many things," Sam replied. "Blacksmith, yes, but also a protector of my people, a fighter for justice, and a friend to those who share our cause." "Your cause?" "Freedom, real freedom, not the partial freedom that came with emancipation." He gestured to a chair. "Sit, both of you. Tell me what happened." Zara told him about being captured, chained in the desert, and how I'd found her. Sam listened without interrupting, his face growing darker with each detail. "Blackwood's getting desperate," he said when she finished. "He's making mistakes, taking risks he wouldn't have taken before." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Leaving Zara alive in the desert instead of killing her outright. Having her chained up where someone might find her. These aren't the actions of a careful man." "Maybe he's under pressure," Zara suggested. "From who?" "His financiers, the men who back his operation." Sam nodded grimly. "I've been hearing things, rumors about a big shipment coming through next week. Something worth enough to make Blackwood take serious risks." "What kind of shipment?" 50 people, all skilled workers, carpenters, seamstresses, teachers. They're being shipped to a plantation in Mexico. 50 people. I felt sick. How is that possible? "They were kidnapped from communities all over Texas," Sam explained. "Blackwood's men told their families they were being relocated for work. By the time anyone realized they were gone, it was too late." "Where are they now?" "Being held at a ranch outside the city. Blackwood's using it as a staging area." "We have to stop this," Zara said. "How?" "It's a fortified ranch with armed guards. We can't just walk in there." "No," Zara agreed. "But we can do something else." "What?" "We can expose him. I have documents that prove his connections to government officials if we can get them to the right people." "What documents?" Sam asked. "Financial records, correspondence, shipping manifests, everything needed to bring down his entire network." "Where are they?" "Hidden in a place only I know, but getting them won't be easy." "Blackwood has the location watched." "What location?" I asked. Zara hesitated, then said, "My old house, where I lived with my husband before he was killed." "That's a trap," Sam said immediately. "Blackwood's probably got men there waiting for you." "I know, but the documents are hidden too well. Even if his men search the house, they won't find them." "How can you be sure?" "Because they're not in the house, they're under it." Sam raised an eyebrow. "Under it. There's a root cellar that connects to a tunnel. The tunnel leads to an old mine shaft about a quarter-mile away. The documents are hidden in the mine. And you're the only one who knows about this tunnel. My husband and I dug it together. We planned to use it as an escape route if we were ever discovered." "But you were discovered anyway," I pointed out. "Yes, but not at the house. We were betrayed by someone we trusted." "Who?" "Judge Cornelius Hartwell. He was supposed to be helping us, but he was feeding information to Blackwood all along." "A judge?" I was beginning to understand the scope of this conspiracy. "How high does this go?" "Higher than you'd think, lower than you'd hope." Sam walked over to the table with the maps and spread out a detailed drawing of the city. "Show me where your house is." Zara pointed to a spot on the east side of San Antonio. "Here. It's a small adobe house with a red door." "I know the area. What about guards?" "At least 2 men watching the house at all times." "Maybe more." "And the mine entrance?" "Here." She pointed to a spot outside the city limits. "It's disguised as an old well." Sam studied the map, tracing possible routes with his finger. "It could work, but we'd need a distraction to draw the guards away from the house." "What kind of distraction?" "A fire, maybe at one of Blackwood's warehouses. Something big enough to require all available men." "That's risky," I said. "If we're caught, we're dead anyway," Zara pointed out. "Blackwood won't stop hunting me until I'm in the ground." "Then we make our move tomorrow night," Sam said. "I'll arrange the distraction, you 2 get the documents, and then we expose the bastard and his whole network." I was quiet for a moment, thinking about what we were planning. "Sam, can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "Why are you doing this?" Why risk your life for people you don't even know? Sam looked at me with eyes that held years of pain and determination. Because I was one of those people once. 20 years ago, I was a slave on a plantation in Mississippi. I escaped, but my wife and children didn't. They were sold to different owners, and I never saw them again. I'm sorry. I spent years looking for them, following every lead, chasing every rumor. I never found them. For all I know, they're dead, or worse, still in chains somewhere. So you help other people find their families. I help other people stay free. It's the only way I know to honor the memory of the family I lost. I understood that kind of pain. I'd lost my family too, though in a different way. What happened to your wife and children? I don't know. And not knowing is almost worse than knowing they're dead. How do you live with that? By making sure it doesn't happen to others. By fighting men like Blackwood who profit from human misery. Zara reached over and squeezed Sam's hand. We'll stop him, Sam. We'll stop all of them. I hope so. Because if we don't, this evil will just keep growing, keep spreading, until there's no freedom left for anyone. What about you, Caleb? Zara asked. What are you fighting for? I thought about it. I'm fighting to stop running. I'm fighting to do something that matters. And what about your family? You mentioned them earlier. They're dead, yellow fever 2 years ago. I'm sorry. I was away fighting the war. I came home to find empty graves and a house full of memories. I looked at both of them. I've been running from those memories ever since. And now? Now I think it's time to stop running and start fighting for something worthwhile. Sam nodded approvingly. Good. Because what we're about to do requires people who are willing to risk everything. What exactly are we about to do? We're about to take on one of the most dangerous men in Texas, a man with connections to the government, the military, and the criminal underworld. A man who won't hesitate to kill anyone who gets in his way. And our plan is to steal some documents and expose him. That's part of it. But there's more. What more? Zara looked at Sam and he nodded. Tell him. The documents don't just prove Blackwood's guilt. They also contain information about a much larger conspiracy. Names of officials in Washington who are involved in the slave trade. Evidence of government contracts being used to fund illegal operations. You're talking about treason. I'm talking about corruption at the highest levels of government. Men who fought to preserve the Union but are now betraying everything it stands for. And you think exposing this will stop them? I think it's the only chance we have. If we can get this information to the right people, it could bring down the entire network. And if we can't, then we try the direct approach, which is, we kill them all. The way she said it, so matter of fact, made me realize that this woman was far more dangerous than she appeared. You're serious. Dead serious. These men have murdered hundreds of people. They've destroyed families, sold children into slavery, and corrupted the government that's supposed to protect us. If the law won't stop them, then we will. By becoming killers ourselves. By becoming soldiers in a war that never ended. I looked at Sam, who nodded grimly. She's right, Caleb. This is war, and in war, sometimes you have to kill your enemies before they kill you. And you're both willing to do that? I've already done it, Zara said quietly. The men who chained me up in the desert? They're not coming back because they're dead. I killed them before they could report back to Blackwood. How? I broke free of the chains about an hour before you found me. When they came back to check on me, I was ready for them. But you were still chained when I found you. I put the chains back on. I wanted to see what kind of man you were, whether you'd help someone who needed it, or whether you'd just ride away. You were testing me. I was. And you passed. I realized that everything I thought I knew about this woman was wrong. She wasn't a victim. She was a warrior, and she'd been playing a much deeper game than I'd understood. What else haven't you told me? I asked. That tomorrow night, when we go after those documents, it's not just about exposing Blackwood. It's about starting a war that will determine the future of freedom in this country. And if we lose, Then slavery returns to America, and everything our people died for during the war will have been in vain. I looked at these two people who had become my allies, and I realized that my life had just taken another unexpected turn. I'd thought I was helping to save one woman. Instead, I was about to become part of something that could change the course of history. "All right," I said. "I'm in, but I want to know everything. No more secrets, no more tests. If we're going to do this, we do it as partners." "Partners," Zara agreed. "Partners," Sam echoed. "Good. Now let's figure out how to bring down Colonel Thaddeus Blackwood." As we bent over the maps, planning our assault on one of the most dangerous men in Texas, I realized that I was no longer running from my past. I was running toward my future. And for the first time in 2 years, that future looked like something worth fighting for. Tomorrow night, we would either strike a blow for freedom or we would die trying. But at least we wouldn't die as victims. We would die as warriors, fighting for something that mattered, and maybe, just maybe, we would win. Das Hunde, Chapter 3. The next evening came too quickly, and not quickly enough. I spent the day checking my weapons, studying the maps Sam had provided, and trying to prepare myself for what was coming. Zara had disappeared for several hours, returning with different clothes and a grim expression. "It's time," she said as the sun began to set. "Sam's men are in position." "What did you find out?" "Blackwood's increased security around my old house. 6 men instead of 2. He knows I'm alive." "How?" "Someone talked. Or maybe he just got paranoid. Either way, this is going to be more difficult than we planned." Sam emerged from the back of his workshop, carrying a bag of tools and weapons. "The warehouse fire will start in 1 hour. That should draw most of his men away from the house." "Most, but not all," Zara said. "There will still be at least 2 guards." "Can you handle 2 men?" Sam asked me. "I can handle whatever I need to handle." "Good, because once we start this, there's no turning back." We mounted our horses and rode through the darkening streets of San Antonio. The city was settling into its evening routine, with people heading home from work and families gathering for dinner. They had no idea that a war was about to begin in their midst. Zara's old house was in a quiet neighborhood on the east side of town. It was a modest adobe building with a red door, just as she'd described. But as we approached, I could see that it was definitely being watched. "There," Zara whispered, pointing to a man sitting in a chair on the porch of the house across the street. "And there." She indicated another man lounging against a wall at the corner. "I see them. Are there more?" "At least 2 more around back, maybe more inside the house itself." "What about the tunnel entrance?" "It's in the root cellar. We'll have to go through the house to get to it." Unless..." "Unless what?" "Unless we create our own entrance." I explained my plan as we positioned ourselves for the attack. Sam would create a distraction at the front of the house, while Zara and I circled around to the back. When the guards moved to investigate, we'd slip inside. "What about the men inside?" Zara asked. "We'll deal with them when we get there." In the distance, we could see the orange glow of flames beginning to rise from the warehouse district. Sam's men had started the fire. "That's our signal," Sam said. "Remember, once you get those documents, meet me at the old church on Commerce Street. If I'm not there by dawn, assume I'm dead and get out of the city." "Sam, no arguments. This is bigger than any of us. If we don't succeed tonight, find someone else to carry on the fight." With that, he rode off toward the front of the house, leaving Zara and me to make our approach from the rear. We dismounted and crept through the shadows, moving as quietly as possible. The back of the house was dark, but I could see a man standing guard near what looked like a kitchen door. "I'll take him," I whispered. "No, let me." Before I could stop her, Zara had slipped away into the darkness. I watched as she approached the guard from behind, moving like a shadow. There was a brief struggle, muffled sounds, and then silence. She reappeared at my side, wiping blood from a knife. "He won't be raising any alarms." "How did you—" "I told you I'm not just a victim. I've been fighting this war for a long time." We slipped through the kitchen door and into the house. It was dark inside, but I could see well enough to make out the layout. The root cellar entrance was through a door in the main room. "There," Zara whispered, pointing to a trap door in the floor, but as we moved toward it, I heard footsteps upstairs. Someone was moving around, probably checking on the guards. "We need to move fast," I said. Zara lifted the trap door, revealing a ladder leading down into darkness. "The tunnel entrance is behind the shelves on the far wall." We climbed down into the cellar, and I immediately smelled the musty odor of earth and old vegetables. Zara moved confidently through the darkness, feeling her way to the far wall. "Help me move these shelves," she said. We pushed the heavy wooden shelves aside, revealing a narrow opening in the wall. It was barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. "You first," I said. "No, if there's trouble, I need you behind me to cover our escape." She was right. I went first, crawling through the narrow tunnel on my hands and knees. The passage was longer than I'd expected, and by the time I reached the other end, my knees were scraped and my back was aching. The tunnel opened into a natural cave, and from there we could see moonlight filtering down from above. The old mine shaft was exactly where Zara had said it would be. "The documents are up there," she said, pointing to a ledge about 15 feet above us. "How do we get up there?" Carefully, she began climbing the rough stone walls of the mine shaft, using cracks and outcroppings for handholds. I followed, trying not to think about what would happen if we fell. The ledge was narrow, barely wide enough for both of us to stand. But there, hidden behind a loose stone, was a waterproof pouch containing the documents that could bring down Blackwood's entire network. "Got them," Zara said, securing the pouch inside her coat. "Let's get out of here." We climbed back down and crawled through the tunnel, emerging into the root cellar. But as we climbed the ladder back into the house, I heard voices above us. "Supposed to check in every hour. When was the last time you heard from Martinez?" "About 30 minutes ago. He's probably taking a piss." "Go check on him and make sure the perimeter is secure." "What about the fire?" "What about it? That's not our problem. Our problem is making sure nobody gets into this house." I looked at Zara and she nodded. We both knew what had to be done. I went first, climbing quietly up the ladder. The trap door was still open, and I could see into the main room. 2 men were standing near the window, looking out at the orange glow of the warehouse fire. I eased myself up through the trap door, moving as quietly as possible. But one of the men turned just as I was getting to my feet. "Hey, who the hell are you?" I drew my gun and fired, but he was already moving. My bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around but not dropping him. He shouted a warning to his partner, who was already reaching for his weapon. The second man was faster than I'd expected. His bullet passed so close to my head that I felt the wind of it. I dove behind a table, pulling Zara down with me. "Back door!" I shouted. We scrambled across the room, bullets splintering the wood around us. I could hear more men coming from upstairs, and I knew we had only seconds before we were trapped. Zara reached the kitchen door first, but as she opened it, gunfire erupted from outside. Blackwood's men had surrounded the house. "The tunnel!" she shouted. We ran back to the trapdoor, but as we reached it, men came pouring down the stairs. I turned and fired, dropping one of them, but there were too many. "Zara! The documents!" She was already moving, sliding down the ladder into the root cellar. I followed, bullets whining overhead. "Move the shelves!" I shouted. We shoved the heavy wooden shelves back into place just as the men reached the cellar. I could hear them pounding on the wood, trying to break through. "They'll find the tunnel," Zara said. "Not if we collapse it." I pulled out the small charges of dynamite I'd brought, just in case. "Get to the other end. I'll bring down the tunnel behind us." "Caleb, go, now!" She disappeared into the tunnel, and I could hear her crawling away. I lit the fuses and followed, moving as fast as I could through the narrow passage. The explosion came just as I reached the mine shaft, bringing down tons of rock and earth. The tunnel was sealed, but we were trapped on the other side. "Are you all right?" Zara asked. "I'm fine, but we need to find another way out." We climbed back up to the ledge, and I could see that the mine shaft extended much deeper than I'd thought. There might be other passages, other ways to the surface. "This way," Zara said, pointing to a narrow opening in the rock wall. We squeezed through the opening and found ourselves in a larger cave system. The air was fresher here, and I could feel a breeze that suggested an opening to the outside. There, Zara said, pointing to a glimmer of light ahead. We followed the passage, and after what seemed like hours, we emerged into the night air. We were about a mile from the house in a grove of oak trees beside a small stream. "The documents," I said, "are they safe?" Zara patted her coat. "Safe. And now we need to get them to someone who can use them." "Who?" "There's a federal judge in Austin, Judge William Morrison. He's one of the few honest men left in Texas." "How do we get to him?" "We ride, hard and fast, because by morning, Blackwood will have every man in Texas looking for us." We found our horses where we'd left them, and we began the long ride to Austin. As we rode, Zara told me more about the documents we'd recovered. "There are letters from government officials authorizing the slave trade," she said. "Financial records showing payments to judges and sheriffs, and a complete list of everyone involved in the network. How many people?" "Hundreds. This goes all the way to Washington." "And you think this Judge Morrison will act on the evidence?" "He's the only one who can. He has jurisdiction over federal crimes, and he's not in Blackwood's pocket." "How do you know?" "Because Blackwood tried to bribe him last year. Morrison not only refused, he launched an investigation into Blackwood's activities." "What happened to the investigation?" "It was shut down by Morrison's superiors. But now, with this evidence, he'll have everything he needs to reopen it." We rode through the night, changing horses at relay stations and staying off the main roads. By dawn, we were within sight of Austin. "There," Zara said, pointing to a large building near the center of town. "That's the courthouse." But as we approached, I could see that something was wrong. There were too many men in the streets, too many people watching the roads. "It's a trap," I said. "No, it's something else." We rode closer, and I could see a crowd gathered around the courthouse steps. Someone was making a speech, but I couldn't make out the words. "What's happening?" Zara asked. "I don't know. But whatever it is, it's not good for us." We dismounted and mixed with the crowd, trying to get closer to the speaker. What I heard made my blood run cold. Judge Morrison was murdered last night, shot down in his own home by persons unknown. But we have reason to believe that the killers were Negro criminals operating out of San Antonio. "Blackwood," Zara whispered. "He got to Morrison first." "What do we do now?" "We find another way. There has to be someone else who can use this evidence." But even as she said it, I could see the despair in her eyes. Morrison had been our best hope, and now he was dead. "There is someone else," I said suddenly. "Who?" "The newspapers. If we can get this story to the right reporter." "That's risky." "How do we know they won't be bought off too?" "We don't, but it's our only chance." I knew a reporter in Austin, a man named Thomas Crawford, who worked for the Austin Daily. He was honest, brave, and had a reputation for taking on powerful interests. We found Crawford at his office, and when I showed him the documents, his eyes widened with excitement. "This is incredible," he said. "This could be the biggest story of the decade. Will you publish it?" "Absolutely, but I need to verify some of these claims first. Can you give me a few days?" "We don't have a few days. Blackwood's men are already looking for us." "Then I'll work fast. But I need to be careful. If this story is wrong, it could destroy my career. And if it's right, then it could save thousands of lives." Crawford worked through the night, verifying names and cross-referencing the information in the documents. By the next morning, he had enough to publish a preliminary story. "This will be in tomorrow's edition," he told us, "but you need to get out of town. Once this hits the streets, Blackwood will know exactly where you are." "Where can we go?" "I have a friend in Dallas, another reporter who can take up the story from there. Between the two of us, we can make sure this gets national attention. And then? Then we let the federal government decide what to do with Colonel Blackwood." 3 days later, the story broke in newspapers across Texas. Within a week, it had reached the national press. The scandal rocked Washington, leading to investigations, arrests, and the complete dismantling of Blackwood's network. Blackwood himself was arrested while trying to flee to Mexico. He was tried, convicted, and sentenced to life in prison. The 50 people who had been kidnapped for the slave trade were freed and returned to their families. "We did it," Zara said, as we read the news of Blackwood's conviction. "We actually did it." "You did it," I corrected. "You're the one who kept those documents safe. You're the one who refused to give up. I couldn't have done it without you. And I couldn't have done it without you. We make a good team. What do we do now? Now we build something. Something clean and honest and worth fighting for." 6 months later, Zara and I were married in a small ceremony in Austin. We used the reward money from Blackwood's capture to buy a small ranch outside the city where we could live quietly and raise the family we both wanted. But we never forgot the lessons we'd learned, that freedom requires constant vigilance, that evil adapts and evolves, and that sometimes the most important battles are fought not by armies, but by ordinary people who refuse to accept injustice. "Do you ever regret it?" Zara asked me one evening as we watched the sunset from our porch. "Regret what?" "Giving up your old life, becoming part of this fight." "Never. My old life was about running from the past. This life is about building the future." "And what kind of future do you want to build? One where children can grow up free, regardless of the color of their skin. One where justice isn't for sale. One where people like Blackwood can't profit from human misery. That's a big dream. It's the only dream worth having." As the stars came out over Texas, I realized that I'd found something I'd never expected to find. A purpose worth living for, a woman worth fighting for, and a future worth building. The war was over, but the peace was just beginning. And for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I belonged. We hope you enjoyed this powerful story of courage, justice, and redemption in post-Civil War Texas. What moment in Caleb and Zara's fight for freedom moved you most? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories from the American frontier. See you in the next adventure.